Welcome to the Academy of Adoption and Assisted Reproduction Attorneys. We're continuing with our series of videos in which we cover all of the different areas of the world where we have fellows. And today we bring you the UK, and it's exciting because we have three great, very professional and expert attorneys for you to, well, of course, and the word attorneys is more of the United States, but we'll let them introduce themselves and explain what they do. We'll start with Colin. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Thanks, Kimberly. My name is Colin Rogerson. I'm head of fertility law at Mills and Reeve in the UK. And I've been practicing in this area for about 12 years now. And I came to this from a training in family law and learned very early on that I'd rather help make families than break them up. So that in a nutshell is why I did it, so I can go to court and leave with an outcome that everybody is happy with.
Great. Natalie?
Hi, I'm Natalie Gamble. I'm the founder of a law firm here in the UK called NGA Law. We specialise exclusively in art law and particularly surrogacy. And I've dealt with around 2,000 surrogacy cases now over the last 17 years. And I love this area of law. It's so fantastic to be helping create families. But I feel like we certainly have a responsibility as professionals to make sure that we're helping people to do it ethically, and also to kind of push the boundaries of things to make things easier and more kind of progressive, as you know, outdated laws need to be brought up to date. I got into this first because I built my own family through donor conception and there was no law around it. So we had to fight for our own family, and that kind of gave me a passion for helping other people. But it doesn't stop. There's always more to do with making the law work and moving things forward.
All right, and Louisa.
Hello, I'm Louisa Gavart, and I'm the founder of specialist UK fertility and family law firm Louisa Gavart Associates. I've been a specialist in English family law for over 20 years, and I've specialised in fertility law here in the UK for around 15 years. I also have a huge interest in helping to shape and improve the law for parents, children and families here in the UK, and I've been really fortunate to represent lots of people from all walks of life in many different cases in the English family court, ranging from international surrogacy from all corners of the world through to fertility treatment and donor conception law, posthumous conception law, and also complex sort of international cases with children and families with all sorts of issues, you know, DNA testing, legal parentage, and care and upbringing of children. So, you know, like everyone else, there's a personal interest there. I'm hugely interested in family life, and there's such a need because of the evolving ways in which families are being created for, you know, assisted reproductive technology law and family law to try and keep pace with that. And it's an ever evolving area.
Wonderful. All right. I almost have to giggle because as we've done these videos, our fellows fall in two categories. They fall in the family law, reformed family law fellow who needed to leave it to create families versus destroy them, or they utilize reproductive technology themselves and have that passion for families. But all right. So we've got people listening to these videos. You have to assume they're kind of at that beginning stage of they reside in the UK. They're looking at the potential of surrogacy as a starting point. Colin, what do they need to know? What are some of the basics for them?
I think the first thing you need to do is work out where you want to undertake your surrogacy journey. It is definitely possible to do surrogacy domestically in the UK, but our law does put some obstacles in place for that. So there are laws against advertising for a surrogate, for example, and there are some great non-profit organisations in this country. One of them, Natalie Gamble, is very involved in, Brilliant Beginnings. And they can help you to find and facilitate a surrogate in the UK. But if you wanted to go overseas, where perhaps there's a greater availability of surrogates, then you need to look to see where you can afford to go and where you feel comfortable undertaking your surrogacy arrangement. It's a huge endeavor. It's a huge responsibility to have a child, any child. But if you're creating a child through surrogacy, it's about making sure that you do it in the most secure and an ethical way as well, so that you know, it's something to be proud of for your child, and so that they grow up with that sense of pride, and that you know that you've done everything you can to legally protect your family and to ethically create your family.
And so, Natalie, for the LGBT community within the UK, are there special parameters or things they need to think of individually?
I think the law in the UK is pretty supportive of, well, at least LGBT families, in that we recognise same-sex parents. You know, it's fine for gay couples or single parents to go overseas for surrogacy and then come back and be recognised as legal parents here. The law's not quite so evolved for transgender parents in terms of having the right parental titles on birth certificates and those sorts of things. So I guess that's where the law still needs to move forward. But I think compared with a lot of the other European countries, we're, you know, much more open and receptive to different family forms in the UK, which is a really positive thing.
Okay, great. And then Louisa, in terms of the right time for them to speak to an attorney in the UK, what's your advice to couples or single parents?
Oh, I'd really recommend that people get advice as soon as possible and before they start to, you know, undertake embryo transfer and commit themselves to, you know, the next stage of their family building journey, simply because the laws differ in different jurisdictions. And so the law in one country might not be the same if you're doing an overseas surrogacy from the country where you're living. And because a lot of the issues around parentage can crystallize, certainly from an English law perspective, you know, at the point of conception. And so it's really important to sort of front load the understanding and get those basic building blocks, if you like, the basics around the law, who will be a parent, you know, what the process and rights and responsibilities will be, you know, what sort of birth certificate will you end up with, and what sort of legal processes are you going to have to do to ensure that you've got parentage and that you can legally protect the foundation and life around your family. So early is best. And then it just means people can make informed decisions that feel right, as Colin was saying, making sure that people feel comfortable with the process, they know what's to come, and they can sign up for that process and sort of get into the driving seat a bit with it, so that they can really take ownership over their family law building and avoid any unwelcome surprises.
Great. So for all three of you, we've got some weird feedback, don't we? So for each of you, if you had just one piece of advice you could get into everybody's hands while they're starting this process, just if you could get a hold of every single one of them, what would it be? Anybody?
I'll go first if you like. I would say have courage. You know, there are lots of other people who've done this before you, and, you know, there are paths to follow and solutions to find. I think lots of people feel very isolated, or that they're the first people to do something in terms of it being a different way of building a family. But on the whole, you're not. So, you know, have courage and go for it.
Yeah, I think I would sort of tailing on to that, I would say to be proud of how you created your family. I know working with people from some cultures that I have, that there's still some sense of stigma that they've come to surrogacy out of a need, and they feel that it's a secret that needs to be kept. You know, all of us on this call have seen countless families made through surrogacy, and we will have all seen one of our judges in the UK at the end of every hearing to say that the love that you can feel for the children in the courtroom is palpable, because they are really much loved children. And so have pride in how you created your family, and that will do right for your children.
And Louisa?
I have a few top tips for anyone thinking about building a family. Think about preserving and maximising your fertility. It's not always there and it can be very fragile. Do think about the genetic legacy and makeup of your family build, whether you're going to be using your own eggs or sperm, or perhaps donor eggs and sperm, and the genetic legacy aspects around information rights that go with that. Think about your budget and make sure that you've carefully planned that for your treatment, as well as the care and upbringing of your children. It's an expensive exercise quite often. And also make sure that you don't leave things to chance. Make sure that you have a viable legal, practical, medical, and logistical sort of action plan. And lastly, think about the legal aspects. It's really important. It's not an add-on, it's an integral part of the overall process. So make sure that you get early legal advice so that you can keep your family legally protected, and make sure you get that magic birth certificate with your name on at the end of it.
Well, Louisa could not have left this with a better ending point than to say, if you need advice for the UK, if you have any involvement or interaction with the UK at all in a reproductive case, you want to contact one of these 3 fellows. And to do that, you will go to the Academy's website under adoptionart.org. We have a map and you can narrow down to the UK and you can find their contact information at that website. We appreciate each of you spending time with us today. And I know for those of you watching this video, they are more than happy to talk to you at any time about your reproductive matters. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.